So we'll get things going here. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. It's great to have you all here today. And today we're coming together for an event focused on biomedical innovation in Canada and the momentum building in our biotech sector. I'm Shana Kelley. I'm a faculty member at the University of Toronto and a life sciences entrepreneur. As the director of the University of Toronto's Precision Medicine Initiative, PRiME, I'm excited to kick off this event today that will showcase both world-class research and also industry leadership. Over the next few hours, we will talk about where we are as a country with respect to building a freestanding biomedical innovation ecosystem. We'll have a series of presentations and discussions involving experts across Canada, and I think this will make for a very engaging and informative event. Before we get into our program, we'll cover a few housekeeping items. First of all, just in terms of accessibility, so today's symposium will be recorded. The live captioning is enabled, so if you need subtitles, you can display them just by clicking on that live transcript function at the bottom right of the Zoom screen. Because of the sizable audience that we have today, the chat function has been disabled. So just use the Q&A function if you'd like to try to bring a question forward for our panelists. And if you have any accessibility needs or concerns, or you end up off the Zoom and you want to get back on the Zoom, just email Angela, who's a member of our team at PRiME, and she will help you get back online. So I'll just leave this for a minute so you can jot down her email address so you have it. And with that, we'll just do a quick land acknowledgement. So we wish to acknowledge the land on which the University of Toronto operates. For thousands of years, it has been the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and most recently, the Mississaugas of the Credit River. Today, this meeting place is still the home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land. So we are going to start the program today with overviews of leading hubs of biomedical research across Canada. And we'll have presentations from a series of world-class institutions. We'll then have a break around 3:45 after you've heard from all the folks listed on this part of the program. And then we're going to move into a panel that is comprised of industry leaders in biotech and from the finance industry, and they'll share their perspectives on the progress being made towards building our biomedical ecosystem, and they'll also highlight what gaps remain. So before we get to any of this, I am going to kick off our program by framing the motivation behind holding this event. And then I'll turn to telling you a bit about the biomedical research, innovation ecosystem, and startup landscape in the GTA. So as we're all very well aware, our world changed forever about a year ago, when a global pandemic caused by a highly infectious virus brought our daily lives and our economy to a screeching halt. We've seen 2 million deaths, over 100 million infected with the SARS-CoV-2 virus, and this has made this an absolutely unprecedented health crisis in the modern era. Furthermore, we've experienced record unemployment across the world, and the impact on mental health has been significant. It's been a challenging time for us all, and particularly for our vulnerable populations who have been disproportionately affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. There's certainly good news on the horizon, however. Due to an incredible global effort, we now have vaccines that will help us limit the spread of COVID-19. We have therapeutics that can decrease the severity of the disease. And we have at-home diagnostics that are starting to roll out that will help us manage transmission. The breakthroughs that made new mRNA vaccines possible were accelerated at an unbelievable pace and have enabled vaccination of many vulnerable people long before we ever thought it would be possible. If you rewind to a year ago when it was first clear that this pandemic was going to be a very serious health crisis, there was a huge question mark around whether we would even be able to vaccinate against a coronavirus. The global biomedical community really kind of came forward with new technologies, and the pace of discovery and development of the vaccines is really absolutely extraordinary. And I know we'll hear more today from Peter Cullis about some of the Canadian components that were involved in the acceleration of the vaccine development effort. And I think we have to continually remind ourselves of the incredible progress that has been made. But on the other hand, here in Canada, it's quite clear that we will have limited access to these breakthroughs for now. So we will likely get better access to vaccines later this year, but right now we have a limited supply and have not yet vaccinated 1% of the Canadian population, while during this month we've seen over 100 deaths a day across the country related to COVID-19 infections. So there's incredible urgency for us to deliver vaccine to people that need it the most, but at the moment we are significantly limited by supply. And I'm sure we have all seen this in the media, that there's been significant discussion regarding why we lack the ability to develop and manufacture vaccines. And this is really central to the set of issues that we will be discussing today. Our lack of biomanufacturing capacity has been pointed to as a critical resource that would give us access to a domestic supply. And our government has certainly stepped up to try to create capacity as fast as possible and has invested significantly in this effort. But I would argue, and I think you'll hear this perspective from others today, that there are critical components of a biomedical ecosystem that are needed to guarantee us access to vaccines and therapeutics when we need them. A complete ecosystem not only relies on biomanufacturing capacity, but includes a large cohort of startup companies like Moderna that pioneer completely new approaches based on basic research, as well as larger pharma and biotech companies that can help them scale. A freestanding Canadian biomedical ecosystem also has to include well-resourced research hubs where new discoveries can be made, translation can be accelerated, and a new cohort of talent can be trained to really power a freestanding ecosystem. We've made tremendous progress over the last few years in growing our, let me go back for a minute. We've made tremendous progress over the last few years in growing our ecosystem, but even with the recent burst in activity with companies being started and financed and even public offerings taking place for Canadian companies, there are large gaps that need to be filled. The programs that support research are going away faster than they're being created. The NCE and CSER programs that fostered applied research and its commercialization have been discontinued. The CHIRP program that supported multidisciplinary health-focused research seems to be MIA. And this really points to the fact that we need new mechanisms to support innovative, groundbreaking research that will support the further growth of our ecosystem. And we've shown that great companies can be created based on the world-class research carried out at our research institutions, and that there's significant ROI that comes from the support of biomedical research. So 2 examples are shown for you here. Gordon Keller is a developmental biologist by training. He worked for decades to elucidate how to turn stem cells into cells that could be used to repair the heart and other tissues. Blue Rock Therapeutics was then launched based on this work and later acquired by Bayer with a value over $1 billion. The Canadian headquarters of Blue Rock, where there's a large R&D team continuing to work away on these stem cell-based therapies, is based right behind me over at our Mars Center in Toronto. Dan Durocher is an expert in the area of DNA repair and founded Repair Therapeutics to take forward an approach he pioneered that uses a concept called synthetic lethality to suppress the growth of tumors. Repair just went through an IPO on the US public markets this summer and now has a market cap over $1 billion. So it's abundantly clear that biomedical research leads to tangible outcomes for our community and for our country. And these are just two successes. There are others. You'll hear about them today. You'll hear from the CEO of Repair Therapeutics. You'll hear from Carl Hansen, who's the founder and CEO of AbCellera. You'll hear from our other academic leaders who have also spun out numerous startups that have been very successful. And so we do have the ability to do this in Canada. There's no doubt about it. So to pave the way for a freestanding biomedical innovation ecosystem that can better support us during pandemics and really contribute to the emergence of a knowledge-based economy in Canada, we really need to amplify our efforts in this area. And we need to double down on the world-class research hubs that are well-positioned to realize new breakthroughs that will improve the health and wellness of Canadians. We clearly need support for pandemic research to better prepare us for the emergence of new viral pathogens. I'm sure this won't be the last pandemic that we grapple with, and we certainly need to be better prepared in the future than we were for COVID-19. But in addition to this, we need new mechanisms to support talent development. We need new mechanisms to support high-risk transformational research. And we need ways to more easily start and grow new companies that will keep talent, IP, and economic benefit in Canada. And I wanted to make an additional set of points related to the need for talent development. And this is something that at academic institutions is a big focus of our efforts. And in addition to driving new research discoveries, the president of University of Toronto, Merrick Gertler, put forward a key set of points in this recent op-ed where he talked about the need for us to think about cultivating talent in Canada as a key priority. Over the last few years with the instability in the US and the UK, we may have had an advantage in attracting some of the best minds to Canada, but that advantage is definitely dissipating and we certainly need to step up our game. Over the last decade, we've seen at the University of Toronto that over 50% of the PhDs that we train in the life sciences, they leave Canada to pursue career opportunities. And they do this not because they want to, they would love to stay in Canada, but because they need to, because they simply can't find R&D jobs within the country. So having a robust biomedical ecosystem where we grow by 5x, 10x, 20x, 25x is absolutely critical to create jobs for Canadians. And creating more startups creates these jobs. These startups are then scaled up and grow into large companies. And this leads to a virtuous cycle that really will benefit us all. So now that I've given you a sense of the motivation behind hosting this event today, I'd like to tell you a bit about what's happening in Toronto to give you a sense of the grassroots support for and momentum towards building an ecosystem based on biomedical innovation. So the University of Toronto is a large research hub. It has thousands of faculty. It has almost 100,000 students. It's a big place. It's a big community of researchers. And we've recognized over the last decade or so that we have tremendous strength in biomedical research in the areas of disease biology, therapeutic discovery, diagnostic development. We have absolutely world-class people. But those that are interested in this area are very often spread out over many different departments, faculties on campus, and throughout our affiliated hospitals. So to facilitate collaboration and to really galvanize our local ecosystem, we created an initiative that we call PRiME, which is focused on next generation precision medicine. So really all things biomedical. PRiME was founded about 2 years ago, and right now we function as a virtual research institute. PRiME brings together 75 faculty members across 15 different departments and 4 different faculties at U of T. And then we also have 150 trainees who are a part of this effort. We bring together engineering, biology, chemistry, other sciences, to use a multidisciplinary approach to tackle the most challenging problems facing us today in biomedicine, including how to combat viral pathogens like SARS-CoV-2. Our goals include at PRiME elevating research in drug discovery, diagnostics, disease biology. We help our faculty members resource their research, find sources of support that will accelerate the breakthroughs. We empower collaborations. We try to bring together new teams of people that are interdisciplinary to really advance highly innovative research. We have a mandate that focuses on training, so helping our trainees to be more multidisciplinary, more translational, and to better equip them for the careers that they will take once they graduate from the University of Toronto. We try to create community. I've already told you that the University of Toronto is a big place, and the GTA is chock full of research organizations, groups focused on commercialization, all kinds of different groups that absolutely should be working together to allow us to become more than the sum of our parts. And another part of our mandate and our goals focuses on building a biotech ecosystem. We feel strongly that we have a huge amount of untapped potential in Toronto and across Canada, and we should really be pushing to try to create more startups, to help startups scale, to create jobs, to create a knowledge-based economy, and to better prepare us for situations like the one we are currently in. So then our research strengths focus in on the areas of therapeutic development. We have expertise in small molecule development, also in protein engineering. We have significant strength in the area of disease diagnostic developments, the development of new devices and approaches to quickly and precisely diagnose disease. We also have world experts on disease biology and the molecular mechanisms that really drive different disease states. And so in terms of our programs, a major effort within PRiME relates to providing small amounts of catalyst funding to multidisciplinary collaborative research teams. And the projects that we invest in are high risk, but also have transformational potential. We help projects get started that likely would not be funded by our large granting councils, which tend to be quite conservative. So we try to seed important research ideas, help them grow, and then within PRiME, we also try to locate additional resources for the efforts that we try to get off the ground. We also have a focus on training and providing important career development opportunities for the next generation of translational leaders. And we also work to build partnerships. So locally, nationally, globally, trying to link with other groups and institutions to really power the research we do. We believe that groundbreaking biomedical research requires collaboration and partnerships, and we're really here to build these relationships. I also wanted to briefly mention our partners. So we're fortunate to be in the GTA amongst a constellation of great groups focused on biomedical research, commercialization, as well as the clinical side of our field. And I could definitely talk for hours about all the great initiatives that we're pursuing together, but I will leave this for another day. Because of the community that we created within PRiME, we're able to mobilize quickly when new challenges emerge. So last March, we were able to quickly pull together a task force of researchers with expertise and technologies applicable to the diagnosis and treatment of SARS-CoV-2 infections. And we were able to resource this group to quickly start screening for new antivirals and to also start developing at-home diagnostics, which was a huge gap when the pandemic took off. One of the outcomes of this task force was a project spearheaded by my colleague Keith Pardee, who was able to re-engineer and repurpose handheld glucose monitors to enable diagnosis of viral infections. So imagine this, that the next time a pandemic comes around, we don't have people standing on sidewalks in lines 100 deep, but instead we have little units that we can all use at home to quickly screen ourselves for the presence of a viral infection. So above and beyond task force for pandemics and these types of activities, Another great strength of the researchers involved in PRiME is the ability to do end-to-end projects where hypotheses about disease biology can be put through a pipeline of technologies so that new therapeutics can be discovered. We have significant strength in the omics as well as in the area of antibody development and also preclinical testing. And this type of effort is ideally suited to develop a pipeline for the creation of new startup companies. A notable example of this type of study carried out by my colleagues Stefan Auger, Dev Sidhu, and Jason Moffett focused in on a potential vulnerability of pancreatic tumors. Using a cutting-edge approach based on functional genomics, the team was able to find new therapeutic targets and to produce an antibody lead for further clinical development within a new startup. And so this is the type of research at the University of Toronto within PRiME that we think is very powerful. And with more resourcing, it can be accelerated and used to produce that enhanced cohort of startups that is so important to building out our ecosystem. So we focus on many different indications within PRiME. We're a bit agnostic in terms of a particular disease that we target, but some of the indications where we have critical mass are summarized here and include infectious disease, cancer and immunotherapy, cardiovascular disease, and regenerative medicine. And our efforts in this area have not only led to great papers in high impact journals and training opportunities for young scientists, but have also led to the creation of many startup companies over the last decade that have gone on to realize significant financial and also clinical successes. So I think we have great momentum within PRiME, within Toronto, and across the GTA. And it's really a matter of resourcing this community to accelerate, do more faster, and to create that biomedical ecosystem that's so important for all of the reasons that I've already laid out. I wanted to briefly touch on one of the areas where we're very strong, regenerative medicine, where we've been fortunate to see a significant federal investment accelerating progress. Through the CFREF program in 2015, we were granted $114 million to support research and commercialization or translation in regenerative medicine. And the outcomes, now that we're approaching the end of this effort, are significant. And it's really this kind of doubling down and investment in research-focused moonshots that make a profound difference in our ability to grow biomedical ecosystems. You know, we rely on agencies like CIHR and NSERC to fund our individual efforts, but through concentrating resources in an area where there are clear unmet needs and a way to create commercialization activity and outputs, this significant type of investment really helps us get there quite a bit faster. So to conclude, I just want to return to these priority areas that our community thinks are ripe for future investment. We need to focus on pandemic preparedness, but with an eye towards building an ecosystem that will allow us to cultivate and retain talent while also creating mechanisms to support transformative, high-risk research. Doing so will allow us to bring health security to Canadians, as well as accelerating the next generation of biomedical breakthroughs. So with that, again, thank you for joining us. I'm looking forward to the rest of this program. It's a very exciting lineup of speakers. And so I'd like to now turn things over to my colleague, Stefan Auger, who is a faculty member in our Faculty of Pharmacy. He's also the co-director of PRiME, and he will introduce our next speaker. Stefan, take it away.